I want to get to a couple of your favorite NFL season win totals beyond the NFC North. But just you also did this interesting thing where you just said, here are the ones I want no part of whatsoever, which I think is a valuable exercise because it saves you time. It sort of allows your handicapping process to narrow to a smaller group of teams. What teams do you want no part of, either to the good or to the bad? You're just like, I don't want to touch these teams.
Yeah, and look, with 32 teams, and we get to do this for a living. We're very fortunate, but a lot of people don't. They have 9 to 5s, they do shift work, they have families, they're going on vacations, all these different types of things. Trying to handicap 32 teams, even between now and the start of the regular season, over 2 months away, is challenging. So like you said, it's a good exercise to be able to cross some of these out. And like one I crossed out right away is the San Francisco 49ers, because that roster is incredible except for the questions at the most important position on the field.
Such a good call.
And I don't know if it'll be Brock Purdy or now they're saying Sam Darnold's ahead of Trey Lance, which is definitely an indictment of Trey Lance. Like if Purdy, who by the way, this guy was the last pick in the NFL draft for a reason, right? He barely got taken by a team, had the 5 really good starts, had a couple of decent looks in the playoffs before getting hurt. I don't know if this guy is actually as good as he was in that small sample.
Adam,
but this roster is phenomenal outside of the quarterback position.
How many times at Iowa State, I'll just raise my hand, did you say, I can't believe I bet on this dude?
I felt like he was his best self in college his freshman year. Regressed throughout his career, and then winds up all of a sudden being like the savior of the season for the 49ers.
That's a great answer to that question. Give me one more that you want no part of.
Look, it's another one with quarterback questions, and that would be the Raiders. Who knows what's going to happen with Jimmy Garoppolo? This is a team in the running for the first pick if Brian Hoyer plays more than a couple of games, or if it's Aiden O'Connell, or who knows who it ends up being there for the Raiders. But with Garoppolo, I think Garoppolo is an average to slightly above average quarterback in the NFL, but that division is also a bear. So for them to have any chance, I think they need Garoppolo to be pretty healthy. Is he healthy by week 1, by week 5, by week 10? We don't know. So that's an easy one, I think, to just go ahead and cross off, because I think there's talent on that roster, and McDaniels works well with Garoppolo, dating back to their days with the Patriots. But, who knows what's going to happen in that quarterback situation.
And it's such a well-placed season win total, right, of 7.5, where it's like, 8 is so, for the bullish people, the 8 is so tempting. They don't even have to have a winning record. 8 and 9, they don't even have to be that good. Why wouldn't I go over? But there is a scenario. You and I do this for baseball, right? There's a range where everything breaks your way, where everything doesn't break your way. There's a scenario for the Raiders where this just falls off a cliff. Give us 1 or 2 that you are betting, season win total, NFL.
Might seem a little square, but I do think Denver bounces back. I don't think that Russ is completely done. I think Nathaniel Hackett was just clearly in over his head, as we saw. And it was just a bad situation all the way around. And look, I think a guy like Sean Payton's able to kind of smooth out the waters a little bit, with everything that's going on with Russ. This is a very, very talented team. And something I think you want to look at, there's a metric over at Football Outsiders called adjusted games lost, which is games lost due to injury, but it weights them based on kind of the importance of the players that were lost. Last year for Denver, they had the second most adjusted games lost on offense and the 5th most on defense. Still had a top 10 defense by EPA per play. They were 30th in third down conversion rate. So they put that defense in a lot of bad situations, and they still performed really, really well. Now you get Peyton with a quarterback that has a track record. And furthermore, that track record, when with a competent head coach, is actually quite good. So I think this Denver team, over the 8.5 that's out there, I think that's a play that I like because, again, I don't think that Russ is done, and there's a ton of talent on that roster.
Yeah, and a lot of that market is just this sort of Russell hate that exists out there. Like he's an easy guy for people to pile on and dislike. 8.5. Adam Burke going over the season win total on the Denver Broncos. One more here.
Yeah, I can throw you an under here too. And again, a lot of these, quarterback is just such an important position out there. I know there's a lot of love for the Chicago Bears. A lot of people seem to like them to really make a big leap.
Don't they feel like, remember last year it was everybody loved the Lions.
Right.
This feels like that this year.
Yeah, and look, the Lions, they got very hot in the second half of the year. They were an offense that nobody wanted to play, and I do have a little bit of a long shot prop on the Lions that I wrote about in the guide. But for Chicago, look, there is no way in hell that I could be interested in an over with a quarterback who gets hit all the time like Justin Fields does. Not just the fact that, their pass protection is a little bit iffy, but, this dude has to run the football a ton for them to even move the ball offensively. And you really worry about a guy like that actually staying together throughout the course of the season. And I do, to some degree, like Detroit. I think people are way too low on Minnesota just because, they outperformed so much last year relative to their Pythagorean win-loss and some of their other metrics. And maybe Green Bay will be decent. I think Chicago is the team that draws the short straw here. I like the under 7.5 for them.
Under 7.5. Green Bay is Wyatt is clapping. He likes that opinion because he's a Vikings guy.
No bias there, Adam. Obviously, a lot of bias, but I love your assessment of the Chicago Bears. Bravo, sir. That was probably the best thing we'll hear all day.
Thank you. Go Buckeyes.
You got bravo.
Okay, never mind. I take it back. I don't want your signature anymore.
The Packers thing is interesting though because you hear this is anecdotal, but it feels like you hear the widest variance of opinion on the Packers, right? Some people immediately go to, it's Jordan Love, it's no longer Aaron Rodgers, draw the line, they're going to stink. I'm kind of, I was mentioning this last week, that there's a long history of quarterbacks in the NFL back in the day when you didn't have to start immediately. If you held the clipboard for years under the same coaching staff, you oftentimes came out spectacular after that. And the team I grew up loving, Washington, had a litany of guys like that. Rippon, Humphreys, Trent Green. Jordan Love has held the clipboard under Aaron Rodgers and Matt LaFleur all this time. He may actually be pretty good.
Yeah, he might be. I mean, I do lean a little bit with the under, but at the same time, it's just because, again, Jordan Love, I don't know what he is. I have no clue what he is. And I would assume that he'd be below average more than I would assume he'd be above average, just for the simple fact that I haven't seen him get a whole lot of reps. And, there's not really a great track record for guys that played at a place like Utah State coming out and having success in the NFL just because of the quality of competition that they play. But Matt LaFleur's a good head coach. Mm-hmm. As you said, he's been, under Aaron Rodgers for a long time. There's good talent at the wide receiver position for that Packers team. So I could see it. But, one other thing I want to mention real quick about Chicago, the schedule matters a lot here too. In the 11 weeks prior to their Week 13 bye, they play 7 road games. So this is a pretty shallow roster where I don't think the schedule works out all that well for the Bears either. So that's something that does concern me quite a bit.
Say that about the road games again. What did you just say?
So they'll play 7 road games in 11 weeks leading into their Week 13 bye.
Oh,
so it's a very, very late bye week for them with a team that's got a pretty shallow roster. They were dead last in third down defense last year. They were last in EPA per play on defense. Like, Justin Fields has to be Superman for this team, I think, to sniff, I would say 500, but now that there's 17 games, to sniff going 8-9, I feel like.
And they are not easy road games either. Vikings, Lions, Chargers.
And even one of the home games is on a short week, too. Yeah. So, it's a bit of a tricky schedule, I think, for them.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.